Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing well. So back today with a response video, which I've been meaning to do for a while. This is a response video for Geoff over at Mendicant Media. So I've mentioned his channel before when I was doing shout outs, I think, but a lot of you are probably familiar with Geoff's channel. He's an Australian guy, I think originally from Sydney, but now lives in regional New South Wales. But massive metalhead, huge collection, very impressive actually, and I enjoy watching his videos a lot. He has a good sense of humor, he's very knowledgeable about the music, and all the stories he tells about traveling all over the world to see concerts. He's really done a lot, especially in the US, like Maryland Death Fest and all of these things I've never even been close to seeing. So yeah, it's a really entertaining channel, and he's come up with, I don't know if it's a thread exactly, but I'm going to respond anyway. I think other people have too. And what this is called, just bear with me, is Challenge Around the World, or Around the World Challenge. So what he would like us to do for this video is show our favorite bands from the countries listed. So he's got a list of countries, and there are 9 countries that he's listed, and we get to pick one of our own. So the 10th one, it's kind of like a wild card. So I'll leave you in suspense until the end for that. So he said, I'm keen to see your deliberation about the best bands from those countries in your opinion, and of course leave a comment below or make a video. So obviously I'm doing that. So there are 9 countries that he's listed, so I'm just going to talk about my favorite bands from these 9 countries. Okay, and just to let you know before I go any further, I'm expecting a delivery today for a new stylus, like a record needle, and unfortunately I have very primitive technology. So much so now that I can't even edit out sections in the middle of the video. So there might be a brief interruption in this video where I go to meet the delivery driver. Hopefully that'll take a couple of minutes. I heard that they were coming today, so I held off on making this video, and then I waited for hours and they didn't come. So ironically, what's going to happen now is they'll come in the middle of this video most likely. So just to let you know, if you see me go away, I'm coming back within a couple of minutes. Okay, so the first country which Geoff has listed, Australia. So show me your favorite bands from Australia. I'm not just saying this to be patriotic because I am Australian, but I think Australia has a really interesting metal scene, and it's funny because a lot of the bands are sort of derivative of what's going on in Europe or America, but yet somehow a lot of these bands come up with a sound of their own, and I think Australia has a lot to offer in terms of metal music. Now with the bands I'm showing, you can tell the era I'm from. Most of the bands I'm showing are from the 90s, so that was just the time, when I was growing up as a, teenager, and teenager at that time. That this was when I was really into that scene. Of course, I haven't lived in Australia for a long time now, so I'm not so up to date with the new bands, but some of my favorites. Let's start with Astrial. This is Summoning the Essence of Ancient Wisdom. So Astrial are a black metal band from sunny northern Queensland, I think. Yeah, and they play guitar-oriented black metal with a lot of clean guitars. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Very underrated band in my opinion, and I actually got the chance to see this band live at Bloodlust Extreme Metal Festival in Blacktown, Sydney. What year was that? 2003, I think. Yeah, so Astrial, good band, check them out. All right, another one of my favorite Australian bands, no surprise, Destroyer 666. This band needs no introduction, of course, classic black thrash, and I think it's fair to say that they were at least one of the bands that were responsible for spawning this genre of black thrash metal. I'm not going to say they were the only band, but yeah, revolutionary, completely different for what was coming out at the time, the mid-90s. So yeah, this is my favorite album by them, Unchain the Wolves, and I've actually got to see them live twice. Ironically, not in Australia, but in Finland. So it was Steelfest 2022 and 2023. So there you go, Destroyer 666. Okay, another one of my favorite. Good. I thought the delivery driver was coming there. Another one of my favorite Australian bands is Mortality. Now, this was a band I first saw in 1994 at Berlin Community Hall in Newtown, which is a suburb in Sydney. Don't think it exists for live gigs anymore. So this is a band from Sydney's western suburbs. It's been described as groove metal, but I think it's more like along the lines of death metal or death thrash. Like, it's not pure death metal, but absolutely really good band. I'm not going to say they sound exactly like this, but obviously there's a lot of influence from bands like Pantera and Demanufacture era Fear Factory, that kind of thing, but it's kind of like technical, mechanical sounding death metal, but I really like it anyway. So this is a criminally underrated album. If you get a chance to listen to it, please do. And it's good to hear that this band's recently reformed, doing live shows, and think they're going to record new material. So yeah, Mortality. Okay, another one of my favorite Australian bands. This is not such a well-known band, I would say, but this is Meerdral with Blood on the Mountain. I think a band from Canberra. Sorry, I should mention which cities in Australia these bands are from. I think they're from Canberra anyway, but like I said, this is completely original black metal in my opinion. It's sort of, in many ways, it's sort of typical of black metal, but the way they use the acoustic guitars and have these dreamy, chilled moments on the album, it almost sounds like spacey and psychedelic, but in a really cool way. Some of my favorite songs on this would be Dumai's Wells and Daughter of the Night, Blood on the Mountain. Absolutely fantastic. If you like black metal, check out Meerdral from Canberra. Okay, now the next band needs no introduction. Sadistic Execution, probably Australia's most famous extreme metal export, and with good reason. Just such a violent, loud, ballistic, over-the-top death metal band. Some people consider them a black metal band, but whatever it is, it's just incredibly extreme. This is the album We Are Death, Fuck You. This is the only one I own, actually. That's because there was a big buzz surrounding this in Sydney, at least in underground circles, when this came out. Like, that was when I was a teenager in the 90s when this album came out. But yeah, never got the chance to see them live, and I could have, so that's a regret of sorts. Yeah, Sadistic Execution. Okay, so there's some of my favorite Australian bands, but now I'm going to go into the top 3 Australian bands. And no, I haven't left anyone out, which is good. Okay, so top 3 favorite Australian bands. First of all, Lord Chaos. I talked about this band in a video recently. They play symphonic black metal, sort of in the vein, not exactly like Emperor and Dimmu Borgir, but if you like those bands, you'll probably enjoy this too. But it's very Emperor influenced. There's a lot of keyboards, and this band featured Astanu, who later joined Dimmu Borgir, of course. So that's Lord Chaos. Another one of my favorite Australian bands, Streborg. So a lot of people know about this band as well. It's a one-man black metal project from Tasmania, and he's sort of he's gained international recognition because not only from that one-man metal documentary, which documented him living in solitude and misanthropy and recording his music, but it's caught the attention of a lot of famous people. Like, I've heard Thurston Moore comment about this band, Thurston Moore from Sonic Youth, and also even Jack Black saying his son is a fan of this band. But yeah, really good stuff, totally unique in my opinion. It's ambient black metal, like maybe influenced by the rawer aspects of Dark Throne and Burzum, but even more minimalist and less of a typical song structure. So with this band, you don't really hear like verse, chorus, verse, or anything like that. It's really just based purely on atmosphere, and it has quite an ambient quality, but it's just really eerie and cold and atmospheric, and it focuses on those themes of, isolation, loneliness, depression, which I think are feelings which all people can relate to. So yeah, this is my favorite album by Streborg, Ghost Woodlands, but I'll just show you another cover because it's cool. This is Autumnal Melancholy. So I just thought I'd show you, that's got the main protagonist, Sinana, in corpse paint in the woods there with a hood. Yeah, so Streborg, I know a lot of people don't get into this band, and I understand because it's very minimalist, but I think it's absolutely great in terms of atmosphere. And now coming to my favorite Australian metal album of all time, it's undoubtedly Cohort with Drawn and Quartered. So Cohort are a death metal band from Whyalla, South Australia. This was the only album they released actually, and it was in 1996. And I finally managed to buy this a couple of years ago. I always had my eye on it. Absolutely brilliant. It's sort of like a thrash influenced death metal, which is quite brutal. So they started out as a thrash band, but went in more of a death metal direction. But on this particular album, there's just so much songwriting talent, especially with the bass lines and just the diversity and everything. I really like it, and I think they're a criminally underrated band. Yeah, so they only had this one album. As I said, they did record another album called Reflections of Madness, but that's never been released to this day for some reason. I think they, for some reason, leaving their label, something like that. However, I do know that Ted from the Crypt and Dark Symphonies, he re-released this. So maybe, Ted, hint hint, you could release Reflections of Madness. That would be cool. So my favorite metal album, Cohort with Drawn and Quartered. Favorite Australian metal album, that is. Okay, so now we're going to go over to the next country. Excuse me. Okay, so the next country on the list is Japan. So what are some of my favorite metal bands from Japan? Okay, now one band that I don't own any material by but I really like is Loudness, and of course they are a legendary Japanese heavy metal band that came to prominence in the 80s. They had that famous song Crazy Nights, which is my favorite song, not to be my favorite Loudness song, not to be confused with the Kiss song, which I don't like. But yeah, Crazy Nights by Loudness is a kick-ass song, really like it. And I actually had the chance to see them in Bangkok in 2018, I think, but I don't actually own anything by them. Of course, another metal band from Japan, which I really like, sorry, there's a biker gang outside, the hell, is Psy. This is Scorn Defeat. So Psy started out as a kind of a symphonic black metal band, but then went in more of a psychedelic, experimental direction, you could say. I have to say, this album, although I got it a couple of years ago, I really liked the song Ready for the Final War, which is an absolute masterpiece. To be honest, I didn't really get into the rest of this album so much. I saw the band live at Grass Pop in 2015, and that was a really interesting theatrical show. But yeah, maybe I need to give this band more of a chance. But anyway, the song Ready for the Final War is awesome, so that's Psy. Another band that I'm going to talk about from Japan, which I really like, this is my friend's band actually, this is Narcobaid. So Narcobaid are a Japanese heavy metal band, obviously, because I'm talking about Japan, but they were based in Bangkok, Thailand for many years. I think because some of the members were working in Thailand, but anyway, yeah. So yes, this is kind of 80s influenced heavy metal. If you like heavy metal in the vein of Judas Priest, but also aspects of hair metal, like, I don't know, Bon Jovi, for example. It's sort of like a cross between those two. And it's a female fronted band, so it has 4 members, and I think there's been some lineup changes. The guitarist Maza left, and he's been replaced, but Hitomi, the lead vocalist, and Hasi, the bass player, the band leader, I think, are still in the band. And Hiro, the drummer, I'm not sure if he's been replaced, but anyway, great band. This is quite underground, so I think you can find them on YouTube as well. This is Narcobaid from Japan. All right, and coming to my favorite, absolute favorite heavy metal band from Japan, that would have to be Metal Lucifer. Yep, this is, now, they have a famous song called Heavy Metal Chainsaw, which is on here. This album's called Heavy Metal Malaysian Chainsaw, even though the band's Japanese, so maybe it was a special release for Malaysia or a tribute to Malaysian fans, I'm not sure. But yeah, if you haven't heard of Metal Lucifer, it's just absolutely pure 80s heavy metal worship, so in the vein of Iron Maiden, Judas Priest. I think it has more in common with Iron Maiden, actually. And, you know, the vocals are very raw, but just like the riffs, the galloping moments, the melodies, it's very reminiscent of Iron Maiden. And the lyrics are cool, maybe unintentionally funny. I don't know, like it's talking about, oh, you know, why are you bringing metalheads down and everything. I'm not sure if it's tongue-in-cheek, or if it's naivety, but I really like the sound of this band. They're good fun, so check them out if you love heavy metal. That's Metal Lucifer from Japan, so probably my favorite Japanese metal band. All right, what have we got next? Okay, up next, Polska, Poland. So talking about my favorite metal bands from Poland. So there are not a lot, but there are quite a few. Of course, probably the most famous band from Poland is Vader, along with another one. This is the only original album I own by them. Vader are, of course, death metal. Now, they're not one of my favorite bands in general, but I have grown to appreciate them. The funny thing about Vader is that while I think they're good, definitely, I always find myself looking for other bands if I want to listen to death metal before this band, but that's not to say they're not talented. I saw them live in Bangkok in 2017, and it was a really good show. But yeah, this album is Litany, but there are other albums by them which I really like a lot, like The Ultimate Incantation and Armageddon. So yeah, So Vader, they are a good band, but there are just other bands that I'd listened to before them. But no offense, still a very good band. And okay, speaking of Vader, this is a band that some people may not know. I really like Moon, also from Poland. So this features, I'm not sure, I think he's in Vader, one or two members of Vader, but basically it's a black metal project. So they're just experimenting with black metal, and this is very bombastic and symphonic, using a lot of keyboards. And I like the lyrics because they're easy to remember. Often they're chanted over and over again, but ultimately the music is just so incredibly catchy. I can't really compare them to anyone, even though they use a lot of keyboards and it's bombastic. It's not like Emperor or something. You just have to listen for yourself. But an underrated black metal band from Poland, Moon, and this is the album Satan's Wept. Okay, now probably the most, I said Vader was the most famous Polish band, but I think it probably is this one, Behemoth, or Behemoth, however you choose to say it. Now, with this band, I do like them, and I'm not trying to be elitist and underground like a, you know, black metal freak or something, but to be honest, with their newer stuff, I don't get into it as much, the death metal. I have nothing against death metal, obviously I like it, and I really like some of their albums, like the earlier death metal albums like Satanica and Thelema 6, but this is ultimately my favorite album, or my favorite era when they were black metal. So this is Behemoth with Storming, Sventovith, Storming Near the Baltic. Absolutely fantastic. And I also have this demo from the Pagan Vastlands. So yeah, this was from the day, back in the early 90s, the band was black metal, and I just enjoy that style more. So I've got nothing against their new style, but obviously a very good band. But without a doubt, some of you probably already know, my favorite band from Poland, number one, is of course Graveland. Yeah, just absolutely epic Viking / black metal. It started out as a very raw black metal band. I know this is somewhat of a controversial band, but I don't care about that, because what I'm ultimately interested in is the music. And some people prefer the raw black metal era. I actually like the era where they started going in more of an epic direction, which began with this album, Creed of Iron. It's absolutely majestic, symphonic, glorious. I just love this album, and my favorite song on it, and my favorite Graveland song of all time, if you have to hear one, is No Mercy in My Heart. Absolutely brilliant. And on that topic, this sounds very inspired by the soundtrack of Conan the Barbarian, you know, which was conducted by Basil Pomodorius. Yeah, so Graveland, my favorite band from Poland. All right. Okay, up next, we have, the next country is Italy. So this is interesting. With some of these countries, I don't listen to a lot of bands from those particular countries. So for Italy, Italy is one of them. Nothing against Italy, of course, but it's just, I don't happen to listen to many bands. I haven't discovered many. But here's one, anyway. This is Boyo Omega, which I have spoken about on this channel before. This is the, basically the Italian band Mortifier, fronted by the vocalist of the Australian Macedonian black metal band Boltak. So, yeah, it's an Italian band, but with an Australian Macedonian vocalist. But this is very sort of epic black metal. Again, a little bit inspired by the Conan the Barbarian soundtrack, but I really like it. And you can definitely notice Boltak's vocals on this album. But yeah, good stuff. So that's Boyo Omega. I don't even know how to pronounce it. B-U-I-O. Sorry, my Italiano is not so good. But Boyo Omega, so that's one band. And probably one of the most famous bands from Italy is Rhapsody, or Rhapsody of Fire. This is a very sort of over-the-top, bombastic power metal band with a lot of classical influences. And I remember the first time I heard this band, I saw a video clip. This was back in the day, like over 20 years ago, and I laughed at how ridiculous it was, and I thought it was silly, like it was all Dungeons and Dragons waving swords around. But over the years, I've come to appreciate that's actually pretty cool, because it's so, I don't know, passionate about this very niche area of metal and sound. I actually like it. So over the years, I've grown to appreciate power metal before. But yeah, I think even fans of classical music alone would kind of like this. There are a lot of choral operatic parts, and top-notch playing, and the vocals are fantastic. It's galloping, really pumps you up with a lot of energy. So this one is Reign of a Thousand Flames, and then I don't know why they changed their name from Rhapsody to Rhapsody of Fire, probably for legal reasons as a result of a band split or something. But yeah, good stuff. It's not something that I listen to all the time, but I do enjoy it when I throw it on once in a while. Okay, and are there any other bands from Italy? Oh, no, not really, but I was just going to say another one is Opera 9, which is a symphonic black metal band as well with a female vocalist, but I don't own any of their stuff, but Opera 9 is a really good band as well. Okay, up next, the next country is Denmark, or however you say it. So this is interesting. Again, I don't listen to a lot of bands from Denmark, and I always found it interesting the fact that Scandinavia is famous for black metal, and of course Denmark being a Scandinavian country, but it's just not as prominent as the other three. Technically Finland is not a Scandinavian country, but a Nordic country. But anyway, Norway, Sweden and Finland are the big three, and then Denmark, you don't hear of too many black metal bands coming from there, but of course there are some good ones. So I do listen to Denial of God. This one, what's it called? The Hollow Mass. Yeah, good stuff. So this is sort of very melancholic black metal, influenced a bit by heavy metal. I have to say, I don't listen to this one all that frequently, but when I do, I enjoy it because it's something original. I did own another EP by them, but it was too slow and doom oriented, so I gave it away in one of my contest prizes, to Mr. Boulder. Yeah, but yeah, Denial of God. I saw them at Steelfest in 2022. It was a very theatrical, interesting performance. So if you like sort of melancholic, depressive black metal with a heavy metal influence, check out Denial of God. And some other bands, I know Denmark is famous for a lot of death metal bands, many of which I don't know, to be honest, but like there are a few. I always hear people talking about that band Undergang, and I have to say I've never heard them, so that's probably a crime on my part. I will, but I do have this compilation, Fuck You, We're From Denmark, which is a death metal compilation. And there are some really good bands on this, also some really bad ones. But my three favorite bands on this are from tracks 7, 8, and 9. So they are Chaosium, Saturnus, and Autumn Leaves. I think they're really good Danish death metal bands, and all sounding quite different as well. But as you may have guessed, this is probably a cliche. My favorite Danish band is, of course, Merciful Fate. So here's the greatest hits one. And I also own this one, 9, which isn't considered one of their legendary albums, but still a very good album. Nevertheless, I like the song Sold My Soul. That's a really good one. Here I have the greatest hits, so it's got everything you need, but I don't need to describe Merciful Fate's music, but you know it's unique because of King Diamond's idiosyncratic falsetto vocal style, which I really enjoy. It sounds very demonic. But it is a crime that I don't own the album Don't Break the Oath, because that's my absolute favorite Merciful Fate album, and I think it's a metal crime not to own that. So I do plan to get that, and I would get it on vinyl because that's my favorite Merciful Fate album. Then of course King Diamond did his solo career as well, which I do like, but not as much. Like I own that album Them by King Diamond, and I didn't get into it much. However, there is a song by King Diamond which I really like a lot, which is The Trial. Absolutely brilliant. Dark Funeral covered that song. But yeah, my favorite metal band from Denmark has to be Merciful Fate. All right. Okay. Ooh, a few more countries to go. So up next we have France. Now again, France is not a band where I listen, sorry, not a country where I listen to a lot of bands from there. It just happens to be the way it is. They're sort of most famous, I would say, for black metal, and it's interesting considering that I'm a massive fan of black metal. I don't really own a lot of music by bands from there, and a lot of people have said to me that's a cardinal error as well. I know, because of a lot of the black metal bands I've heard from there I really like. There's one particular band, it's a bit of a sketchy band. I don't like what they stand for politically, but they have some very bleak sounding riffs. I won't mention that band, but I think they're good. And then also the band Seth, which is like a symphonic black metal band. And I was introduced to that band by Sean the Beast, actually. So he showed it on his YouTube channel. Yes, Seth, and that album Le Blesseur, ... I plan to order that because I really like it. So good symphonic black metal, Seth. And then I also own just a couple. This is Hemoth with Satanic Terrorism, which is a very sort of raw, aggressive French black metal band, but I really like the riffs on this. It's good. I bought this ages ago and I should listen to it more because it's really an excellent band. So Hemoth or Hemoth. And probably the most famous French black metal release I own is Mutilation. This is, I always get it, Vampires of Black Imperial Blood. Yeah, so Mutilation are probably France's most famous or infamous black metal band. And when I mostly got this actually back in the day, this was a case where people were recommending it, and I really liked the cover art. Incidentally, I've seen a meme about this where it says, when grandma says it's okay to use her living room for your black metal album cover. And I always thought that, so, but actually the music is excellent. It's very primal and primitive and raw, but the atmosphere is absolutely incredible. So yeah, really like this band, and I would like to own more by them. So this is probably my favorite band from France, Mutilation, and this is the album Vampires of Black Imperial Blood. Okay. Up next we have Netherlands. Okay, so, oh no, I was going to say or Holland, but I've heard that Holland is only a part of the Netherlands. Anyway, yeah, Netherlands, Nederland. Okay, so there are a lot of good metal bands from there, obviously, and one of my favorites actually is this black metal band called Sauron, and you may have heard me talk about them. Sauron, like from Lord of the Rings. The album which I really like by them is Universe of Fire. Sorry, no. What's it called? Universe of Filth. Yeah, that's right. Sorry, they have us. Anyway, I'll just shut the fuck up. Yes, so Universe of Filth, but Sauron is a very sort of caustic, belligerent, blasting black metal band, sort of like the Dutch equivalent of Marduk, and even they have that song Sauron Death Squad, which is, I think, their equivalent of Panzer Division Marduk, but absolutely excellent band. Unfortunately, I don't own that album, but I would like to get it. And then if we talk about other famous bands, which I like, oh, so many. But there's, of course, Sinister. This is with Cross the Stick. So the Dutch are famous for producing quality death metal. So it's, I think, primarily considered like a death metal country for extreme metal anyway. But this is a very good album, Cross the Sticks. Again, one I don't listen to that much, but I should listen to more. So I've heard some people say they're like the Dutch Suffocation, if you didn't know them. Yeah. And, of course, another band which I really like from Netherlands is Severe Torture. I've shown the other one, Misanthropic Carnage, many times, but this one, what's it called? Yeah, Fall of the Despised. I really like this one too. So just brutal death metal in the vein of Cannibal Corpse, Tomb of the Mutilated, especially in terms of the vocals. But this band has more diversity and atmosphere, I think. So I think Severe Torture are a great band. And okay, probably the most famous band from the Netherlands, and one which I really like, is of course Gorefest. Yes, very heavy, groove-driven death metal with really barbaric vocals. You know, it's absolutely fantastic. And they've gone through various different eras. This album is Fault from their death metal era, which I like. Then they also, this is a double release, they also, Erase was the more groove-oriented one, where a lot of people thought they were selling out, but fuck all that. Like, I think this band just evolved. I like the albums which came after this as well, when they went in even sort of groovier, rockier direction, but they sort of made every release a little bit different. But like, if you like listen to the early stuff, it's very sort of brutal, pure death metal. So I think Gorefest are an absolutely fantastic band. But you want to know my absolute favorite band from the Netherlands? It's one I only discovered recently, thanks to Mark from Wandering Souls webzine, Sirith Gorgor. And I talked about this in a collection update a couple of videos ago. Not many people liked that video because I went into too much detail, I think, but so I've talked about these albums ad nauseum, but all I can say is this: it's absolutely blasting atmospheric black metal from the Netherlands. And if you like Marduk and Enthroned, this band is an absolute must. You will love this band. And as you know, many of you know, Marduk and Enthroned are a couple of my favorite black metal bands of all time, so it's no surprise that I like this criminally underrated band, Sirith Gorgor from Netherlands. Okay, what's next? Okay, then we've got Spain. This was easy because there's only one band from Spain which I listen to, and that is Avulsed. So this is Avulsed with Yearning for the Grotesque. This is one of my favorite albums by them, and I thought I'd show this one because it's got a cool, iconic cover art as well. But yeah, Avulsed play brutal, gory death metal, you know, talking about themes like, you know, zombies and all of that good stuff. And with Dave Rotten's, you know, very low, guttural, bear-like vocals. But this band has a lot of melody and groove. I really like Yeah, I just pulled this one out because of the iconic cover art. I also own the box set by this band, and I think my favorite album by them, actually I won't tell you because I'm going to do a top 20 death metal albums soon. I also bought the new release by this band, but I'm not going to show that today because that's coming in a collection update. But yeah, just brutal old school meat and potatoes gory death metal. You can't go wrong with A Valst from Spain. Okay, up next we have Canada, and this is the 9th country, I believe. I haven't been counting this consciously, but yes, of course, Canada is another famous metal country with a diverse range of bands, many of which I don't know actually. Like, I've heard people talking about Razor a lot, and of course, I have heard a couple of their albums on YouTube, and it sounded pretty good, but it hasn't really grabbed me too much, I have to say. And then there are some bands that just didn't grab me, like Axis of Advance. I know a lot of people talk about them. I really tried to get into them and I just couldn't. And then of course, Blasphemy. Up on the wall, you know, where my Archgoat poster came down, I was going to put up this new Blasphemy one, I will soon. So yeah, Blasphemy are probably one of Canada's most famous metal bands. You know, they play black metal / war metal. I did see them live in Bangkok in 2017, and that was a really good chaotic show, and they had so much charisma as performers. But I have to say, when I've listened to the music, I haven't got into it all that much, but I don't think I've given it enough of a chance. Like, I hear a lot of YouTubers saying, oh, Blasphemy, you know, certain albums by them are in their top 20 black metal albums of all time, so I need to give Blasphemy more of a listen, actually. But yes, I like their live energy. Now, talking about albums I actually own, okay, so here's Rush with their Greatest Hits CD. As I've mentioned recently, I only recently got into Rush, thanks to my mum, because she recommended them to me. But yeah, absolutely fantastic band. Like, they started off as a proto-heavy metal band, sort of in the vein of Led Zeppelin, and then became more of a prog rock band, but then they went through an 80s synth rock stage, and then I think they returned to their proggy sound. But I really like this band a lot. I can't believe I neglected or failed to discover them for so long, but I really like them a lot. Probably my favorite era for this band would be late 70s to early 80s, and based on the songs I really like as favorites on this album, I think the album which I really need to get by them is Moving Pictures. So Rush are an absolutely awesome band, and I recently heard the other day that they're reforming with a new drummer to do like a reunion tour, so that would be really cool. If I had a chance to see them, I definitely would, for sure. Yep, so Rush, and then of course, another famous band from Canada, Gorguts, with this is the album Considered Dead. Probably, is it fair to say they're the most famous death metal band from Canada? I'm not sure, but what I can tell you is this album right here is in my top 5 death metal albums of all time. That's no secret, I've mentioned it before. Just absolutely brilliant. The riffs are fantastic, it's technical yet catchy. The vocals are really brutal, and you can actually tell what the vocalist Luc Lemay is saying. Yeah, just an awesome band. And I didn't get into later albums so much. A lot of people talk about Obscura, From Wisdom to Hate. I think I should give those albums more of a chance. But this one is just death metal perfection. So Gorguts with Considered Dead. But this is it might surprise people, but you know what my absolute favorite band from Canada is? Anvil. So, you know, traditional heavy metal, which started out in the early 80s and influenced a whole spate of bands from around the world. But sort of the ironic aspect of this band was they never made it to the big time, like all these bands which they inspired. And of course they made the documentary about, which I own, and it's awesome. Now, a lot of people say that this band, the story is more interesting than the music, but I respectfully disagree. I think this band is absolutely fantastic. Just makes some really original, catchy heavy metal, which is completely unique in sound, in my opinion, especially with Lips's vocal style and everything. But yeah, I just love this band and everything they represent. They're a very hard-working band. Like, they've released, I think these days they release about 1 album per year. But yeah, these would be my favorite albums by them. So Forged in Fire and Strength of Steel, just absolutely brilliant. So raw and cavernous. I really like them. People often say that this one is the best, metal on metal, and there's no doubt that it is a good album, but I just like these two more. So yeah, Forged in Fire and Strength of Steel, absolutely fantastic. And the other thing about Anvil is a lot of people say, oh, really only the early albums were good, but I disagree with that again, because some of these later albums, which I really like and listened to a lot, are Pounding the Pavement and Legal at Last. Yeah, a few years ago I was just listening to these albums non-stop when I first bought them. I will say, like, with some of their albums after this one, after Legal at Last, they became a bit samey, but you know, it's hard when you're releasing one album per year. But yes, absolutely great band. Listen to the albums that I've recommended in this video. Yeah, that's my favorite Canadian band, Anvil. So there you go. All right. And so now I've completed all 9 countries, guys, and we're going to the wild card where I get to choose a country. It's a country of my choice for metal music. And for my wild card, can you guess? I've selected Finland. So some people are going, oh, no surprise there. I was going to choose Greece, except of course in my last video I did my top 10 Hellenic black metal bands, so that would seem like repeating it. But yes, Finland is an absolutely fantastic country for metal, famous for all subgenres and styles, including death metal, death doom, doom metal, black metal. Yeah, so I'm just talking about some of my favorites. But yeah, Amorphous is one of them. You know, I discovered this band through a Relapse compilation. God, coming up like 28 years ago now or something, but I really like Amorphous a lot. I mostly own the older albums, this one being my favorite, Elegy, but I really need to give some of the newer ones with Tommy Yutzin more of a chance. But that mid-period era with Pasi Koskinen on vocals, I absolutely love. So yeah, Amorphous is one of my favorite Finnish bands. And then, as you can probably imagine, with me, my other favorite bands from Finland are black metal bands. So here are some of them. Archgoat, absolutely brilliant, heavy, dark, evil, black death metal. Even bordering on war metal sometimes, but I've seen this band live a couple of times and I'm going to see them again very soon and can't wait. So Archgoat. And then if I'm talking about black metal bands from Finland, I could not neglect this band, Beheret. This is Drawing Down the Moon. Absolutely legendary album. No words need to be said about this, apart from the fact that it's essential if you like black metal, especially Finnish black metal. The atmosphere is unique and so are the vocals. That's all I'll say, but yes, you should definitely check this out. Beheret with Drawing Down the Moon. And of course, another favorite band, Goat Moon. This is an interesting band because they've adopted all kinds of styles, like including symphonic, folky, raw black metal, so they've tried their hand at everything, but the results are always good musically. I prefer the sort of the folkier, more symphonic stuff compared to the raw black metal stuff, because I just think it sounds more interesting. But yeah, they've released some stellar albums, and this one being my favorite, so Goat Moon with Finnish Steel Storm. Okay, another favorite Finnish band is of course Horna, so a staple household name in Finnish black metal. This album is Suden Taival. There was a reason. What was it? I did have a reason. Well, yeah, I think I've told you this. My favorite album by them is Envatnag's, you know, Evangelists of Satan or whatever it's called. But I thought I'd show this one because it's got a cool front cover. So yeah, Horner are sort of very aggressive black metal, but I think a lot of people say they're run of the mill, but I think they have a completely original sound, and so does the offshoot of this band, which is Sargeist. I only own one album by them, Satanic Black Devotion, but it's a really good one. So this is Horner. And of course, again, how could I talk about Finnish black metal without mentioning Impaled Nazarene? This was the first black metal band I ever heard in my entire life. You probably heard me tell the story, but when I was 14 years old, the year was 1993, I was in the Rock and Roll Warehouse in Sydney, which is this underground metal shop, and I asked, the guy had all these death metal albums, and then he was talking about black metal, and I said, oh, what's black metal? Like, what's an example of that? And he pointed at the Impaled Nazarene album, Tolkont Nors Nors Nors, which was just new. He said, that's black metal. And when he turned it on, it just changed my life, because it not only scared the shit out of me with that intro, but it blew me away. So, and then this band has been very diverse since, like, what can I say? Impaled Nazarene, leaders of the Finnish black metal scene, I would say, like the most well established, and they've never really released a bad album. This is Pro Patria Finlandia, not my favorite album by Impaled Nazarene, but I'm showing it because it's the only one I own on vinyl, and I like this cover, very Finnish as well. And of course, probably my favorite black metal band from Finland is, you guessed it, Satanic Warmaster. This is their album, or his album, Carillion Satanist Madness, but I've probably mentioned ad nauseum many times that Satanic Warmaster is my favorite Finnish black metal project, just because I think it's so bleak and raw and emotive, and Werewolf, who's the main man behind this project, he's just a musical genius, how he can incorporate so much bleakness and emotion into the riffs. So yeah, this is my favorite album by Satanic Warmaster, but it's sort of, it hovers between this one and Nachtterror, so it depends on which day you ask me. But yeah, this would be ultimately my favorite black metal band from Finland, favorite band from Finland probably, Satanic Warmaster. Okay, so there you have it, guys. Considering that I've talked about 10 countries and multiple bands, this video hasn't gone on for too long, which I'm relieved about. And hey, the delivery guy didn't come. I hope I didn't jinx it, that's good. Yes, so thanks a lot for listening. I hope you enjoyed the video. And Geoff, I don't know if this was intended as a thread or not, or if I'm too late, but I just thought I'd do it anyway because it's fun. Speaking of which, I think I've seen you at some metal gigs in Sydney in the early 2000s. Does that sound right? Like you were around there at that time, like festivals like Bloodlust and so on, and some other concerts at Sydney Uni. I think I saw you. Did you have did you used to have a jacket with an Autopsy Acts of the Unspeakable back patch? I think that was you, but I'm not sure. But anyway, yeah, it just goes to show how much of a small world it is, especially in the context of metal. But yeah, Geoff, thanks a lot for this great idea, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Everyone else, I hope you enjoyed the video too. Still waiting for my stylus, but I'm going to cut the video off because I've been going on long enough. I'll be back again soon with another response video, but in the meantime, I'd like to hear from you in the comments. That would be cool, and take care, and I'll see you soon. Cheers, bye.